Welcome into Bucs Insider, coming to you from the Bucs studio, presented by Ticketmaster. Casey Phillips here with Scott Smith and Brianna Dix. And man, we got a lot to talk about here for it to be off season. Between schedule release last night, we had rookie minicamp and National Coaching Academy, and it just feels like there's been so much going on in this building. And we got to have a media availability with some assistant coaches, which is always great. That they're, especially the coaches, we don't always get to hear from on a regular basis because they're not necessarily in the, the coordinator roles or that kind of thing. So a ton to talk about. Before we get to all of that, I know we did have some roster moves. A wild thing we don't typically say in the off season as much. We say it sometimes, but I'm like, we now officially have enough football happening that there are roster moves going on. So tell us what those are.
We talked about the before the rookie minicamp how there were about 34 players here on tryout contracts, and that we didn't discuss any of them specifically because most of them are not going to be around past the weekend. But generally every year we do sign one or two of those guys, and in this case we signed Iowa linebacker Nick Jackson, who played something like 73 college games and had, I think, 555 tackles.
That's so many.
So, I mean, the guy's been productive like crazy. We'll see. And then a defensive lineman from Penn State, so we did, some Big Ten shopping, Devon J. Thomas, which I think is a legally changed last name for what it used to be.
I like that.
Because you don't see that a lot. And then to make room for them, we waived another rookie. We'd signed him, Anthony Landfear, and a linebacker we got in January named Deion Jennings. Not to be confused with Deion Jones, the veteran linebacker who's still here.
Okay. Yes, that's good clarification. So now also, last show we talked about how we'd found out some of the rookie numbers, the draft picks had chosen their numbers. Well, now we've
given them.
Or been assigned them. Yes, that's true. They don't always have as much choice when you're a rookie. You would just, this is your jersey, take it or leave it. So now we have some of the new veteran numbers of guys that just joined the team. So we've got Hassan Reddick is 5, Anthony Walker is 3, Charlie Heck is 77, Riley Dixon is 92, and Kendall Vildor, which is still my favorite name, is 22.
Okay.
You already started shaking your head.
Well, I mean, you just
soapbox.
said Riley Dixon is 92 without saying also that Riley Dixon is the punter. You see that in college, but I don't remember the last time I saw a punter in the NFL in the 90s.
Bug me.
Hey, punters can have big numbers too.
They can. They can have numbers in the 90s. That's a very recent change. So there's a lot wider range. We've never had a punter that wasn't 1 to 19 before, so it's kind of crazy. Anthony Walker, I mean, 3 is kind of unusual for a linebacker, but he's from Northwestern, so I'm sure his judgment is good. And then, it's still getting hard. I think we talked about this the other day. It's just still hard to get used to guys like edge rushers in a 5 or an off-ball linebacker in a 3. I mean, Kendall Vildor, 22, perfect. I don't know. It's given them a lot more opportunity. They can choose what they want. It's just a little hard to get used to.
I thought about making a joke that's maybe as high as the Northwestern guy could count, but I still did it. I decided against it, and then I decided, nah, I'm going to make the joke. I'm going to do it. I have to. Okay, so now we also wanted to get more into rookie minicamp because last week when we did the show, it had just started, that there'd only been kind of one practice, a little bit to go off of, but then there were a few other days. We have more news, more things we can report about how some of the guys looked, again, with the caveat that it's shorts and t-shirts. Coaches always give all those statements of this is not representative necessarily, but I know that, ironically, one of the people we talked about in that limited window ended up being someone we wanted to talk about again, Bree.
Yes, so cornerback Jacob Parrish has absolutely played incredible throughout rookie minicamp. He had 2 interceptions, which those are the only picks of rookie minicamp, the coaches have said. So on Saturday when the Bucs moved into the indoor facility due to weather, he had his second interception, which I thought was just an incredible play and kind of showcases his skill set. He was originally lined up inside, then quickly diagnosed, moved outside, showed kind of his fast feet in transition, the change of direction skills, and then quickly closed on the ball to get the pick, undercut the receiver. So excited to see what he's able to do. And then Todd Bowles dubbed him the fastest player on the field on Friday, and I think you saw that speed, the
that's what made Scott
how
go,
smooth he was in coverage with that pick on Saturday. So, and then Jacob Parrish even said, I'll be even faster when I fully learn the scheme and kind of get everything down and get my feet wet. So
he'll play faster.
Yes, excited to see what he does throughout training camp.
The real reason I went, was because I actually didn't see that play when it happened, and we were running the clip, and it was the first time I'd seen it. I was impressed by the catch. That wasn't like right here. That was out in front of him like this.
Makes Bowles happy.
That's what I'm saying. And again, I think it was maybe Kevin Russ or Nick Rapone when the coaches were talking about how Jamel Dean, for instance, had several interceptions in his hands last year, and it's like it's been a bit of an issue for our cornerbacks in recent years. They're just not taking advantage of their turnover opportunities, and that's one of the reasons why we only had 7 picks last year. So we try to find ball hawks, right? You call them ball hawks because maybe they have the stats in college, but to see the actual hands, that was encouraging.
You know, I always think it's interesting during rookie minicamp. Typically, most people are paying attention to the draft picks for obvious reasons, and a lot of times undrafted guys don't really get a lot of attention until or unless they make the roster, unless there's something very unique or interesting about their stories. So, of course, you know, Shiloh Sanders, Desmond Watson, they have gotten a lot more attention than the average undrafted guy for a few different reasons. And, of course, one, like, that's what Desmond Watson ends up getting talked about is the fact that he is so big, right? That's been the storyline. But I know when he addressed the media, he talked about how he's like, that's not the whole thing of what I want to be known as.
And he's... Obviously, you said they have notoriety for a certain reason, and his was he weighed 464 pounds at Florida's Pro Day, and so when he signed with the Buccaneers, he became the heaviest player in NFL history. I mean, he hasn't played a game yet, but you know what I'm saying. And he acknowledged that. I mean, I was impressed with his overall demeanor. He's a very upbeat guy. He wants to play football, and he acknowledges it. He's not running from it. That he's like, yeah, I guess I made history, but I don't want that to be my narrative, you know. And I want to be known as a good football player, which is something he controls. Right. And so it'll be good to see him pursue that goal, and it would be nice one day feels like it'd be nice one day for us to be talking about a player like Desmond Watson because of something he did on the field, and rather than on the scale.
Like stopping the tush push,
so
probably.
Good luck for him. I mean, I think a lot of us are wishing him luck in his efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. And related to that, you know, we talked about how coaches were made available, and we got to hear from Charlie Strong, which of course a lot of Tampa people knew him from his time at USF as well. And so I also got to do a slice with him in addition to his media availability. So we're excited for that to come out and for you guys to hear a little bit more from him. But something he talked about both in my slice and his open media time was that he had actually gone to scout Kalijah Cansey's high school. Now, I specifically said Kalijah Cansey's high school, not Kalijah Cansey.
Yes.
That's what he discussed, is that Kalijah brought it up to him when he came down here of like, you know, you were scouting my high school a lot, but not me. What's up with that? And he was like, because I was too short, huh? I was too small, huh? And Charlie Strong was like, look, man, if I had known you would turn into this, I would have been scouting you. And I thought that I really loved the chip on the shoulder that now to the coach that
they're working together.
That he gets to be like, you missed out on me, man.
That's a pretty well-known program, right? Isn't it Levante Davis?
It is,
too?
yeah.
And it produces a lot of NFL players.
Even if it had only produced Levante and Kalijah, that's not bad.
Right. But I bet scouts go there every year.
Every year, and apparently Kalijah was not the top on the list, and he made sure to remind Charlie Strong of that, which
that's his right now.
Appreciated. Yeah, I thought that was really great. So, there was a lot of great things that came out of all the different assistant coaches' media time, so you can check all of those out. And another one was we got to hear from Coach McGahee for the first time, special teams coach, since that rule change about kickoff at the owners' meeting. So let's go ahead and listen to what he had to say about that.
It'll be a lot more returns. You know, the difference between percentage-wise between the ball being at the 30 and being at the 35 is huge. Like, that's a big difference. And I can promise you head coaches are not going to want that ball. You know, defensive head coaches are not going to want that ball at the 35. You get a first down, you're in field goal range. And so it's going to change the game a lot. It'll change how things are, how rosters are going to be built. It's going to change how the game will be played.
Yeah, always great to get his take on things. What were your thoughts listening to him
speak
on
he said, he talked about it a lot in a couple of different instances, but he said something that I think you might remember me saying when they were talking about this rule, and I was hoping it would not pass. And just to review, if anybody doesn't remember, they kept the dynamic kickoff from last year with the two lines lined up but stationary near each other. And but one tweak they made was to move, if it is a touchback, the offense starts at the 35 now instead of the 30. I'm old enough to remember when it was the 20.
Yeah.
So it's changed a lot, and my opinion was that's too punitive with the kickers nowadays. It happened in our Dallas game with that amazing kicker that they have. They got like one first down on the drive, and
then you're in
the guy makes a 62-yard field goal. That's exactly what Coach T-Mac said. He said, offensive coaches in particular, or defensive coaches, I mean, like Todd Bowles, are not going to want to give the offensive ball to 35. They could get one first down. I mean, it would be like a 20-yard first down and kick a field goal. And usually if you get a team off the field after one first down, that's a good defensive stretch. So he believes, and I think he's right, that the teams are not going to be selling for kickoffs like they did before. And he says you could have 4, 5, 6 more kickoffs a game. Think how much more important that play is now.
Yeah.
And so that's going to change how rosters are constructed. Maybe your 52nd and 53rd guys are another linebacker or defensive back who's good at coverage rather than a 7th defensive tackle or something like that, or an 8th offensive lineman. So that's going to open some opportunities for some players.
I think it's going to make end-of-game situations a lot more interesting to game plan for. So I like it in that sense of just there's a lot more intrigue now of making the decision, because it used to be, especially if you're facing a team that has like a Devin Hester like potential return guy, where you're very nervous about kicking to them. It always, well, we just touch back. We don't want to risk this. We won't bother with it. But now you have the other end of it of, well, now we don't want to risk that. You know, especially if you're it's a 3-point type game, 1, 2, 3-point game. And so I'm like, man, this is going to be fascinating to see what coaches decide which is the riskier thing in their mind of kicking it off and giving them that chance, or giving them the chance from the 35. And I love it from that.
I would suspect it'll take a while for teams to fall into what their normal pattern is, because they're going to want to, I would suspect early on, they're going to try to cover kicks and find out, okay, we're good at this. We almost always stop before the 30, then we're going to keep doing that. If you have a leaky coverage unit and you're giving up some long returns, like you said, maybe they won't risk it in that situation.
Yeah, special teams is going to be even more important of a kicker that can precision kick, and then a coverage unit that can do what they need to do.
I don't have a problem with special teams being important.
Yeah.
You know, that's fine, but I just think
this is a lot.
A bit much.
All right, so I know we also got to hear from Coach Larry Foote and talking specifically about David Walker. So, Bree, what did you learn about what they think of him?
So the video went around on social media. So David Walker was a 4th-round selection. So it showed in the war room, Larry Foote gives Jason Light a gigantic hug and then immediately yells, "Super Bowl, baby." And he kind of emphasized and explained what he kind of meant by that, which Larry Foote said that he was a little bit biased because he himself was a 4th-round draft pick. But he said that when the first time he was in the Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers, that team was made up of a lot of middle-round guys, whether it was 4th-round, 6th-round guys, even some undrafted guys. So he said, I think if you do a good job drafting in those middle rounds, you're setting yourself up to win a Super Bowl. And he said that I was really impressed with that we were able to get that caliber of player in the 4th round. And then really all throughout rookie minicamp, David Walker has been absolutely dominant, like showing the burst off the line of scrimmage, which was kind of the big thing in college for him at Central Arkansas, but just, quickly bypassing blockers. And I'm really excited to see what he's able to do during training camp, and kind of is able to use both the quickness and strength in his pass rush repertoire. So.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, I did an event last night actually with Jason Light for one of our corporate sponsors, and we talked about the idea of how Jason Light loves to address positions both in free agency and in the draft. And it's always a great way to attack things from both sides. So the signing of Hassan Reddick and then the drafting of David Walker, I know he was saying that they felt really good about making their pass rush better, which is great. So now I know also another coach we talked to was Nick Rapone, and I think that this is going to be a really interesting position group to watch this year, is kind of the safety position, because it's like, all right, Antoine Winfield, cool, check. But man, outside of that, there's a lot up in the air of who's going to be playing next to him, what is that going to look like, and how does it affect the rest of the secondary. So he spoke about how important that would be to have guys that could maybe do multiple things.
Yeah, and the Bucs and Todd Bowles' coaches have emphasized that, I think, in recent years, and you've seen it become important. Like last year, as he pointed out, Christian Izzy played 4 different positions. Yeah. So I think that means slot corner, outside corner in that one game, and then both safety positions at some point, because we had so many guys in the secondary getting hurt, and sometimes multiple guys at the same position. So it only makes sense if guys can handle it to cross-train a good number. Not everybody. Like I think Jamel Dean is an outside cornerback.
Right. Yeah.
But Tyke Smith is right now training at strong safety, which he may start at, and slot corner, which he looked good at last year.
Right.
Christian Izzy, who we know has seen action all over the place, is currently training at free safety, which he wouldn't be the starter right now because of Antoine Winfield, but again, you never know.
Yeah.
And slot corner. Antoine can play in the slot. Jacob Parrish could probably play in the slot, but as you pointed out last week, Coach Bowles was adamant that he's an outside corner first, and then also can play in the slot. So the more guys you have like that, the better. And not every guy can handle it, but if we can keep finding guys like that, it gives you a lot more flexibility, and you can do some things even when everybody's healthy that the offense isn't expecting. So they see Christian Izzy out there at some other spot and like, why is he there? What are they doing?
Yeah, the confusion, which Bowles loves to be able to confuse
so
that
confusing.
offense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I also loved that Nick Rapone had said that they had kind of gone back to what they did during the Super Bowl year, where they have the cornerbacks and safeties meeting together collectively to kind of foster that dialogue where guys can kind of lean across the room and say, okay, what did you see here on this play and what are you doing? And I think that's going to really boost communication on the field throughout the year, them being able to kind of communicate through what they're seeing in the secondary.
For sure. All right, and then we're going to close with just a few schedule thoughts that the schedule released last night. If you have not seen it, check it out on the Bucs socials, website, everywhere. And of course, the schedule release video that we did with former Buccaneer head coach John Gruden. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you check that out. We thought we'd each just kind of give one thought of something that we're looking forward to or interested in. I know Scott and I did a full schedule release reaction video that went out last night. So we gave many thoughts there. So if you want all of our thoughts, visit that. But for now, Bree, tell me what stands out to you about that, of what you're looking forward to.
I am really excited for the Week 7 Monday Night Football game against the Detroit Lions at Ford Field, and I just think that atmosphere, we've gone to Detroit the last several years, it seems like, and I feel like that's really grown into a rivalry with that team, two physical teams going head-to-head, and I feel like it has that playoff atmosphere. And for those that don't know, the press box is open air in that stadium, so I just feel like the ambiance, it's a lot of fun, and I think that's going to be a really, really big game, primetime stage. That's a game that I'm definitely looking forward to.
5th trip to Detroit since 2019, which is no other team outside of our division have we gone there 3 times, more than 3 times in this span. So
it's creating a nice little rivalry.
Just keeps happening, and those have been, most of them have been really good games too.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch that. Especially, I hope that just everyone is like healthy for both teams. Like when we were without Tristan Wirfs to that game, it just feels like I want to see these two teams at full strength go head-to-head. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Scott, how about you? What game stands out?
Even before we knew what the schedule was, but even more so now, I love the Rams game. I don't know, that game has intrigued me for a while. I just think the Rams are one of the most interesting teams in the NFC because last year was supposed to be a rebuilding year for them, and they
did that
defied
reload.
all that, right? Yeah. And they seem to have been able to reinvent themselves several times. I think they're a sneaky top NFC contender, and we obviously think the Bucs are too, and probably still not quite getting their due, despite being the only NFC team to make the playoffs each of the last 5 years and win a Super Bowl. But whatever. Yeah,
I think that matchup is so interesting, especially when the Rams for years were known for their GM always saying "F them picks," right? Yeah. That they just kept trading away all these draft picks, and of course Jason Light having the exact opposite strategy of we are building totally through our draft picks practically. That it's so interesting to watch how these two teams have both been able to kind of, instead of when people expected them to rebuild, been able to reload, but done it in very different ways. Yeah. I think that's a fun matchup.
Well, they effed their first and their early picks. They usually had a lot of picks, and they hit on a number of 4th and 5th rounders, and that's why they've been able to stay good. But you're right, though, they did it again this year, Devontae Adams. Now Cooper Kupp moved on from Cooper Kupp and immediately replaced him with Devontae Adams to go with Puka Nacua. Matthew Stafford still getting it done at age 37. It's a big challenge, and it's going to be on, that one's on Sunday Night Football, right?
Yeah, Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
Which is going to be interesting from a schedule standpoint of then having to fly back, and you are not getting in till the wee hours of the next day. All right, my thought was I'm excited for these Saints games, mainly because I'm just like, what is this going to look like? I'm just so intrigued. Now that we've gotten the official news on Derek Carr, because we'd been waiting on that for a long time of how's that shoulder, what's going on, and then they draft a quarterback, and what are they going to, how does this going to look? And so now we know officially no Derek Carr. And so by the time we play them that first time, what are they going to have decided? What are they going to figure out? Is it going to be whoever they decide to go with week 1? Is that still going to be the case by the time we face them? I just love a sort of quarterback decision being up in the air, knowing that we're going to play them twice, and who knows who's going to be at the helm both times and what that's going to look like. So I think that's going to be a fun one to check out.
I wish we got them earlier in the season.
Yeah, before they got a chance to sort themselves out. I know, right? All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Bucs Insider. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time.